Okay, hello, beautiful people. Welcome. I am Lex Sisney, and the most important thing to know about me is that I'm a business scaling coach. It's something I've done for 16 plus years. Where I specialize is with a CEO and a leadership team who are growing a fast-growing company, or there's a big market opportunity to capture, and the CEO and the team are realizing that what got them to the current level isn't going to get them to the next. And so they're looking for ways to reinvent themselves, to scale more smoothly, capture the opportunity, but without becoming a stodgy bureaucratic organization. Like they want to keep their core values intact, their entrepreneurial DNA intact. And so they're asking that question, how do we evolve quickly without becoming like a staid organization? And so I work in those settings. And what I'm going to do in this lightning class is share with you the same framework that I teach these high growth companies. And it's called high leverage leadership. I'm really doing this lightning class for three reasons. One is this is my life's work. It's something that was born out of the trenches of real life business building and entrepreneurship. And I need an audience to share it with. So I'm really grateful that you're here with me because without you, I would have no opportunity to share what I found useful and true. So again, thank you for being here. The second reason I'm doing this is that uh, high leverage leadership is a system where everything hangs together. It's called organizational physics. And we're living in this era of, social media and bite-sized information. And it is what it is. But what you miss in that is the depth of a system where everything hangs together. It's a lattice work or a mental model where all the pieces fit together. And so that takes a little bit more depth of understanding and attention in order to see how things connect. And so the reason I'm doing this lightning lesson is to show you how things connect together. And it's cool. And really, it's one of those models where the more time you spend with it, you'll see that there's almost infinite depth. Like you can take it to any level of depth and insight that you want to take it to. So it gets compounding returns the more mastery you have over it. And the third reason I'm doing this lightning course is that I'm hosting a management certification course in 2 weeks from today. And in that program, we're going to teach you these same models, but we're going to do a deep dive and apply it to your own business. Okay, with that out of the way, let me share with you the architecture of this class. So I want to just touch on why high leverage matters. And I want to ask you to reflect on a challenge that you're having today in your business. And then I'm going to give you a systems model. It's actually a systems view using four first principles. It's four pictures. Okay, so I'm going to build up the systems mentality with you, and then we're going to apply that same system to your challenge. And we'll see what kind of insights we can generate. Then I'm going to touch very briefly on this certification program, and we're going to end with Q&A. Okay, so let's start with why high leverage matters. So leverage, what I mean by leverage is it's a way to get maximum effect with minimal effort. And in order to do that, you have to have the right framework and you need to be able to apply leverage at the right point in the system at the right time. From my vantage point, there's never been a better time to start to apply high leverage to your life, to your work, to whatever it is that you want to pursue, because we all are dealing with increasing complexity. And so the leaders that can kind of step up above the level of the problem or opportunity and look at it in a systems view and go, oh, I know what to do here. I know what's causing this system to show this up this way. I know where to apply leverage, and I can predict the outcome in advance. So that's why high leverage is so important. So what I'd like you to do is to take a moment and reflect on a big bottleneck that you're experiencing right now in your work. And once you do that, I want you to tune into the instinctive way you would typically deal with it. So the bottleneck, you don't have to be too specific here. You can be generic, like how do I get my product team to ship faster? Or I have a disengaged employee, or we're struggling with launching a new product innovation against all the complexity and needs of the core product? Or how do I free up my own time so that I can be more strategic? Anything like that is fair game. Go ahead and reflect for a moment about that challenge, and then what would be your instinctive way to work with that challenge? Do you attack the problem? Do you work harder? Do you try to figure out the root cause? Mm, do you try to find advice and advisors who can help you? Like, what's your instinctive reaction for how you would typically attack that challenge? And then I'm gonna teach you the system. We're gonna find the high leverage, and I'm gonna ask you, okay, did your approach change as a result of what you've learned in this course? So, from a systems view, what that means is to look at the whole system, not just the parts and the pieces, and pay attention to how everything interconnects together. One of my heroes is Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, and if you listen to his interviews, he just kind of has this catchphrase of, okay, well, we just go back to first principles. And the interesting thing about first principles is that often it can seem contrarian. Like, what is that company doing? Why are they taking that approach? And it's only from their awareness of first principles and their conviction to follow those through that over time it starts to look like a genius move. But early in NVIDIA's life, it didn't seem genius. It seemed crazy. And you'll hear the same kind of mentality. Elon Musk, another world-class entrepreneur, come back to first principles. Even Sam Altman, I read, the other day, like, don't fight the physics of business. So all this is out there, but when most of us hear first principles, it can seem pretty daunting. Like, I'm not a physicist or I'm not an engineer, and don't these first principles just to apply to physical material systems? And the answer is, first principles are pretty easy to recognize and apply when you know what to look for. And my life's work is showing leaders how first principles thinking can apply to what are thought of as softer things, people relationships, team performance, organizational design, business strategy. So that's what I'm going to share with you in my work here. And these are all first principles. Again, I'm going to share with you 4 pictures representing 4 first principles. So the first one here is what all of my work is based on, and it's a simple sounding concept, but it has profound implications. And the idea is integration over entropy. Integration over entropy. And what this recognizes is that every system at every level faces the same constraints. And the fundamental constraint is called finite energy in time. Finite energy in time. So your business has finite energy in time. It's got to get new sales, new customers, new energy sources from outside itself if it's going to survive and thrive. If it can't get new customers, if it can't get new sales, if it doesn't have market clout, no new energy is going to come into your business. And once your cash reserves are dried up, you're going to fail. It's no different than you. Okay? You have finite energy and time. That's why you had to get food and oxygen and water. If you don't, you're going to fail. It's because of this concept of finite energy in time. So integration at the top of the picture means how well integrated your system is with the surrounding environment. And if you have high integration, that's where the gains come in. So if your business has high integration, it means that its unique and valuable capabilities are aligned right now with growth opportunities. It's a good business to be in right now. Lots of new energy, lots of new clout, new customers, new money is pouring in. Do you feel the flow with me? That's a really good place to be. Okay. Below the line is called entropy, and entropy is this force that causes disintegration. It eats away at things. It creates friction, problems, disintegration. And it's always there, and it's always increasing. So in order to survive and thrive, you have to take the energy you get into the system and you first have to apply it to keep entropy in check. If you can't keep the level of entropy in check, then it's going to eat away and destroy the system from the inside out. So let's use an example. Let's say that you're leading the company with a big growth opportunity. There's lots of market opportunity, lots of integration chances available. But inside the business, it's a shit show, right? Software engineering is blaming sales, and customer success doesn't have a leg to stand on, and one side doesn't know what the other side is doing. And so we just can't seem to get out of our own way. Feel the level of entropy in that system. It's really hard to fight through that to make good decisions and implement them quickly. So the entropy's high in that system. The leaders somehow have to come up with a way to reduce entropy, lower the amount of energy lost to entropy in the system. And by law, that creates more freedom, more capacity, more energy to go out and do new product development, innovation, win new customers. It's no different than a marriage that's on the rocks, right? Both partners have an opportunity to be in integration with each other and out in the world in a healthy partnership. But if the marriage is on the rocks, notice how hard it is to feel peace and to feel love and have good communications and harmony at home. The energy loss there is really, really, really high. So naturally, both partners will have a harder time being effective and successful and joyous in their careers, right? Until the relationship is healed or it ends and there's healing, that entropy is going to eat away from the inside. So this is true for every system at every level. And it's a really, really valuable lens to keep in your hip pocket. How do you do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to start to train your brain to pay attention to what feels like an energy drain. Okay. And one way I recommend doing that is to go from the most important things in your life and go out in concentric circles. So, it's a good area to start with is your physical health. There's a saying, if you lose your health, you lose everything. Well, my physical health, I just tune in. Okay. But do I feel like I'm getting more energy out of my physical health right now? Again, or it's costing me more energy. It's a drain. Yeah. And if I notice it feels like a gain, well, which means like, hey, I've got a good fitness routine, I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, I'm doing the things I need to do to be in optimal health. Awesome. I don't have to do much more other than appreciate it. Maybe I want to go for an extra personal fitness challenge. Cool. Right? But if I'm tuning in like, oh, my physical health feels like an energy drain, it's a representation of entropy. And if I'm wise, I don't just let the hole or the energy loss continue. I'll go do something about it. Oh, I want to change my diet or my sleep routine or change something up. And what I'm trying to communicate to you is that's not just wishful thinking, it's physics. It's essential because if you don't lower the entropy in your physical health, it's going to be like your life was a boat and there's a freaking hole in the boat. There's a hole in the hull. Well, if you wanted to sail from California to Hawaii, you wouldn't go off in a holy boat, right? You'd plug the hole. You'd plug the leak because a leaky vessel doesn't just heal itself, it gets more leaky. And so tuning into an energy drain here allows you to go, oh, I want to change something there. And the same principle applies at all systems, all levels. Go to your primary love relationship. Do you feel like it's a gain right now? Awesome. Enjoy the harmony. Go on dates. Have fun together. Do you feel like it's a drain because you're both you're in a fight or you're split between work and home or there's just not enough of energy available to invest in the relationship? Well, if you're wise and that relationship is important to you, you start to think about ways to, okay, how can I shift this drain into neutral or ideally a gain? You go out to your family members, go out to your colleagues, your boss, your peers, your subordinates at work. Which ones feel like a gain? Awesome. Celebrate them. Appreciate them. Which ones feel like a drain? Are they important to you? If they're important to you and it feels like a drain, I want it to trigger the awareness, oh, I need to go do something about that. Finite energy and time. That's the first principle. And everything else in this work is about identifying the high leverage points to minimize the drain so you can maximize the gains. Now, one thing that might not be what that could be debatable in the way I'm explaining this is like which one of these is more important? Is it integration or entropy? And the answer is that integration is the most important. Without high integration, there's no new energy coming in, there's no flow. Life isn't going to be very fun and you're soon going to perish. However, what I'm proposing is that giving awareness to below the line to where there are holes in the boat, go plug those holes. By law, you'll free up more energy, more capacity to be in higher integration. So integration must always be there. Entropy will never completely go away. You don't want it to go away because it reveals where there's problems and opportunities for growth. But you tune your awareness to notice where are the energy drains now. Okay, that's principle number one. Principle number two is based off of principle number one. It's this, that if there's finite energy and time, that means by law, every system has to do four things simultaneously. It has to shape the environment in order to acquire new energy. It's got to respond to changes occurring in the environment. It's got to do so as a whole organism or organization, including the parts and the tasks that make it up. So that dance, this trade-off between these dimensions is always happening. And recognizing that, we can create a pattern language. So when we see a system showing up with a high drive to produce results, that means it's trying to shape the environment. It's focused on the parts and the tasks. We call that the producing force. It's what drives results, right? What do we do and how do we get it done fast? We got to drive results. Where should we see a high producing force in your business? That's right. Sales, product development, engineering, operations. This actually the real answer is we want a strong, healthy producing force in every function of your business. That's the most important force on the board here. Because if that force is out of alignment or not working well or working hard, it means that we're not producing results for whom we exist. So what's most important? However, if we're only focused on producing results in the short run, we're going to burn out because we haven't also stabilized how the system responds, right? The stabilizing force is how the system in a business, how it systematizes, how it sells, services, and delivers. You know, it's what brings order, quality, efficiency, scalability. So if we were only producing results and or stabilizing how we do it, we're systematizing how we sell, service, and deliver, our business is going to be successful and profitable in the short run. Think about it. We're producing results for whom we exist. We're stabilized how we do it. Life's pretty awesome. However, the environment's always changing. So while we're producing and stabilizing, we also have to be innovating. And that means we're uh, shaping the future over the long term. And while in the producing quadrant, we want to see a high producing quadrant in things like I mentioned, like sales, product development, engineering, operations. And we want to see a higher stabilizing force in areas like also like operations, right? Operations needs to produce and stabilize, but we want to see a high stabilizing force anywhere there's a need to bring quality, control, repeatability, efficiency, like manufacturing, like the controller, right? Those functions need a high or healthy stabilizing force. The higher innovating force we want to see in business strategy. We want to see it in new product development and innovation. I love to see a high innovating force in strategic people development because we can tap into where the world is headed and how working here at our company prepares you for that future, right? We can see ahead. And the last force here is the unifying force, and that's what brings cohesion, right? Unity, teamwork to the system. And we want to see a high unifying force in areas like culture and talent, like account management, because the account managers need to connect with lots of different customer types, or like cross-functional project management, which needs to be able to manage details, stabilizing, and also orchestrate the people, the relationships involved. So just tune in with me that these four forces have to exist in your system, but sometimes they are out of balance. Sometimes a force is missing. Sometimes there's too much of a force in one area when you need another. And that's going to start to point the way towards higher leverage, as I'm going to show you. The one way to kind of bring these concepts alive is to start to apply them to yourself and your team. So it's all systems, all levels have these same four forces at play, interplay, right? And so just as I showed you on this slide, shape and respond and whole and parts, you'll see the same thing on this slide, shape, respond, whole, parts. It's just now that I'm translating the language a little bit to apply to individuals and teams. So when we're seeing a person with a high producing force, they're going to focus on what to do. You're going to have high confidence that they're a hard worker, that they're a fighter. They move at a fast pace. Yeah. That's distinct from a person who has a high stabilizer style. And your confidence there is going to be that they can take a big, gnarly mess and make it ordered and efficient and have high quality. They're going to move at a slower pace though, because they're aware of all the intricacies and details. Now, a person with a high innovator style, you're gonna have high confidence interacting with them that they really get the future. They're very creative and sometimes they're all over the place. They're so creative and future oriented. And you can contrast that with a unifier who's more savvy in terms of political and human relationships, right? They're really tuned into what the people are feeling and trying to say, even if it doesn't match their exact words, right? They just have this attunement to what people are really feeling. Now, all these styles are in conflict with each other, meaning that if we're expressing one really strongly, we're going to have a trade-off in other areas. In fact, a style here is really an energy efficient behavior that we've developed to manage the complexities of our environment. And there's usually a trade-off. So if I'm expressing a high drive to produce and innovate, right, which means I'm working hard, I'm trying to figure out the big picture, find creative solutions, let's freaking go. I'm naturally going to have less capacity to really understand how the rest of my team might be feeling or what their emotional needs are. And I'm certainly not looking at the details of it, right? But a different style, like an innovator stabilizer style, would see the big picture and they're instantly translating that into the details, and they could be very analytical and very smart, but notice the producing force is missing, so they're not going to be able to bring as much forward as quickly. So a producer innovator is more like an entrepreneur, while a stabilizer innovator is more like an analyst, very smart analyst. A producer stabilizer sales leader is going to be very different than a producer unifier sales leader. Producer stabilizer sales leader is going to expect people to work hard and follow the process. Hit your calls or hit your outreach goals. Boom, boom, boom. Run the engine. Very methodical. Producer unifier is going to lead by example and really with their camaraderie and charisma that we're part of this team and let's go. Let's charge the hill as one. So these styles and trade-offs are always at work, and being able to recognize them within yourself and within your team allows many things, but one is just that shared language of like, okay, what force is up here? What force do we need? When we say we need a new head of sales, do we want a producer, stabilizer, innovator who can work hard, understand the details, and see the big picture? Or do we want a producer, stabilizer, unifier who can work hard, understands the technical nuances of the field, and can really lead people and connect with clients? There's always a trade-off. All of us have all four dimensions at work. I just want you to tune in to the trade-off and the language that you can use with your team. Okay, so let's recap. We have finite energy and time. By law, every system at all levels has got to shape and respond to the environment, including the whole organism and the parts. And there are therefore these forces and styles at work in every system, and you're going to get very predictable behavior if you have a preponderance of one force or an absence of a force in that system. So that's picture number 2. Let's go to the third law. which is that every system has these unavoidable stages of growth and decline. Every system has these unavoidable stages of growth and decline. It's very similar to being a human or parenting a child. Like the child's got to go through the stages and you need to parent them at each stage. So if you don't parent your 3-year-old like they're already 13, or vice versa, you don't manage your products at one stage like they're already at another stage. You don't manage your business unit or business like it's already skipped a stage. You gotta manage to the stage. And so what you'll see, like these PSIU forces exist not only, again, they exist at all levels of the system. They exist in people and teams, but they also exist in products and business units and markets. So when you're piloting a new product that needs a very high innovating force, needs a very high innovating leader, high innovating environment. Ideally, you're innovating for innovative customers who are on the leading edge. They can help paint the way forward. But then as you move that product into the nail it phase, which means you have real customers with real pain points, you've got to produce results for them fast. Yeah? And that's essential, but then soon after once you have product market fit, you have to systematize how you deliver those results. And the customer type starts to change. So now that you've systematized, you've built a platform of scale, you're producing results, you've systematized how you can do it. Now you can start to innovate again. In some of my other work, you'll see that the goal is to get up into this part of the life cycle curve with your core business, core products, and then start to launch new initiatives, new products, new service lines, new markets that will go through their own unavoidable stages of growth and decline. What happens is that when we try to skip a stage, we get into all kinds of problems, right? So the main thing I want you to take away from this lens is like, okay, for any situation, business unit, product, team, or whatever, start with this question. Okay, what stage is it at? Because if it's at a piloted stage, you should be treating it very differently than if it was at a nail it stage or at a scale it stage. What's the stage? The goal and the focus should be to go from this stage to the next stage as quickly as possible, but without trying to skip a stage. One way I apply this in organizational physics is we always look to assign one leader, a single threaded owner, who has the right style and technical skills and vision and value for this initiative at this stage. But we're only asking them to take it from one stage into the next. So if I was looking for a leader to lead an initiative from piloted into early nail it, I'd look for an entrepreneurial leader who brings the producing and innovating force and can really take this thing in through. But it would be a mistake to create expectations that they're going to go from piloted into nail it and beyond into scale it, because unless they're the founder, entrepreneur, CEO, that's going to be very hard for them to do. And in order for a founder or CEO to do it, we're actually designing the whole organization around him or her to be able to do that. So you break it down, manage to the stage, look for that single threaded owner and the cross-functional team who can take it from one stage into the next and no further. When we get to the next stage, then we'll figure out how to manage to the follow-on stage. So there's a lot of nuance we can unpack there, but that's a big idea is I want you to ask, what stage are we at now with any initiative? Because every system has a life cycle curve, an unavoidable stages of growth and decline. Last picture here. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I just want you to tune in with me that every system has mass. Mass is resistance to change. Okay? And as a high leverage leader, the more you recognize that there's resistance to change in every system, the more astute you'll be. So you have some levers to work with when you're trying to get the mass, that's this diamond here of your business or your team or whatever you want to manage. You've got these levers. The first is strategy. Like if you're pursuing the wrong strategy, no amount of leadership effort is going to matter because you're out of step with the environment. So that's essential. You also have the lever of culture, right? You want to make sure that the culture of this system is aligned for the mission. And then, of course, you have people. Now, everybody knows that. Like, what's the secret to a great business? Well, you have to have the right strategy, great culture, great people. Okay. But also a key lever is structure. Structure is how the organism or organization is designed, right? There's a reason that your brain is in your head and not in your ass because design matters. And so often a business that's in the change of a strategy, it has an old structure, and that structure, that design is pushing it off in the old direction, right? It's got to be designed, organized to support the new direction you desire. And another key lever is process. Now, fundamentally, the most important process in any system is the ability to make good decisions against changing conditions and implement them quickly. And that's the process. It's like a heartbeat or a brain, but bump, but bump. You got to make smart decisions and implement them quickly. So one of the things we do in organizational physics is just call out that these levels down here of structure and process are just as important as culture and people, but they actually are like trim tabs in the back of a ship. You can get a lot of high leverage and actually improve your culture and your people performance by working at these levers of structure and process. It's a lot that we could break down there. The main thing I want you to take away as a real take-home application, kind of a rule of thumb, is that recognizing everything has mass. If you're going to pursue a new initiative, the smart thing to do is to ask, okay, who represents a critical mass over this initiative? Who represents a critical mass? A critical mass means the minimal number of people who can cause this system to shift momentum. In physics, a critical mass is that last molecule that causes a phase shift, from water to steam, from water to ice, the minimal unit. Same thing here. What's the minimal number of people, the critical mass, who can help me shift momentum on this project or initiative? And you want to gather them in through a process that'll help you gather the mass so that you can execute quickly against your initiative. So I gave you 4 pictures. And the key principles here, the key ideas are first and foremost, you've got finite energy and time, and your goal is to shift where there are drains emerging, holes in the hull, into gains. At least neutral, if not a gain. The next idea is that there are these trade-offs in polarities between dimensions or forces. And so you start to look at your team, your business, your products as a collection of forces, producing, stabilizing, innovating, unifying. And generally, you're trying to give the force what it needs. Give that system the force that it needs. Next, third big idea was that there's unavoidable stages that your business, your product, your projects have to go through, and always manage the stage. And the fourth thing is that everything has mass or resistance to change. And so you want to, as a rule of thumb, who represents a critical mass over this initiative? And you want to involve them upstream in the decision-making process so that you make a better decision. Their resistance to change goes down because they understand it. And now you can implement quickly because you've gathered the mass in, follow a good process, make the right decision. Therefore, you should be able to implement quicker. Those are the 4 key ideas or first principles to take a systems view in your life and in your organization. I hope you find them interesting. I want you to tune in with me, though. The more time you spend there, the more you'll start to see the applications and implications. So now let's go and apply this to leverage. And leverage isn't more effort again. It's the right effort applied where the system will move. So one question I have here is that our products are out of step with the market. Okay, so it sounds like it's probably a later stage business. It's over here, and it's allowed which means it's operating in a commodity market, and it sounds like it's losing some customer traction who either can go elsewhere or find more delightful solutions. So one thing I want you to tune in with me is if your business or products are over here, on the laggard stage or the milk it stage, you have a few options. One, you can sell it off. Two, you can continue to milk it for those cash proceeds that you want to then invest in new growth initiatives over here. Or you could say, there's really market demand here. We just took our eye off the ball. What we should really do is drive this initiative back into scale it if we can. But if your business or product or initiative is on the left side over here in the growth stage, then you just know by law you got to quickly pilot it, quickly nail it, and then scale it without skipping a step. So that's the first thing I would do is identify where we're at in our stage. Then the next thing I do is I go up here and I'd say, okay, well, as a system, that's we're not retaining customers. That's a breakdown in the producing force, right? Because that's for whom we exist, is our clients, our customers. Now, the trick though is that you don't usually solve the problem. The high leverage way to solve the problem isn't usually in that quadrant. So let me give you an example. We're losing customers. A producing approach would be, well, incentivize the sales and customer service team to work harder or give them retention bonuses, like focus on working harder, retention bonuses, producing results faster. Okay. I don't think that's going to be very successful. You probably have the experience that that doesn't work very well. If it does, it's a stopgap measure. Instead, from a high leverage view, you should look around the quadrant. So that means look in the stabilizer quadrant. Okay, well, how's the quality of our product roadmap? How's the quality of our customer service response? How's the quality of our products? Right? Those are probably be very high leverage ways to look at improving customer retention, right? Imagine that, like, oh, we have a really strong product quality. Awesome. Or we're really clear on what products we're bringing to market because we've studied it and we have a system to do it. Awesome. I might look at the innovating quadrant and say, okay, well, what's the next level of breakthrough that this market is seems to be pulling towards, right? And do we have skills in house where we can sacrifice maybe for some short-term product success, but really bring forward the next new innovation? That's a great way to solve customer retention, right? That creates a lot of forgiveness. Or maybe the unifying quadrant here is like we've just lost touch with how important it is to make our customers happy. So we want to rally our culture around, you know, uh, uh, customer satisfaction as a value. Really unify with our customers as one. Their problems are our problems. I don't know the exact right solution. I'm just trying to illustrate that doubling down on the producing quadrant to solve a producing problem is likely not the high leverage way or the only way to attack it. Look for high leverage opportunities around it. Okay. Next question I have here is looks like it's from an educational institution, and they have a lot of teachers and a lot of entropy in the school district. I'm going to imagine that that's uh, underprivileged school district then. And, how do you solve that? Well, let's use these same principles. I would come back here, and this might not be easy, okay, but doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I would look at gathering the mass of the parents together, which means an event, and get the parents in the same room to help them understand the strategy for this school. That's what I mean by gathering the mass. And I would introduce some of the key people and help articulate the kind of culture we're trying to build and why we need their help. Okay. Then I would, in the school structure, I'd make a role for parent liaison. It could be a hat. And it would make sure we have a process to, take feedback from parents, but also a process to measure engagement and satisfaction. Might also do the same thing with the students. There's like, don't underestimate the power of young people. Like getting them involved in solving the solution could be a great leverage point. Now, the next thing I would do would be to come up here and say, okay, well, the culture in the school isn't, there aren't a lot of unifiers. And there was a sub question here of, well, should I hire more unifier teachers? And that's a good illustration of it's hard to solve a unifying quadrant or a unifying problem from the unifying quadrant, meaning if you hired unifier teachers, the surrounding environment is still going to be misaligned, toxic, where they're probably not going to want to work. They're going to have a hard time expressing their natural unifying characteristics because we're all shaped by the environments that we inhabit. So instead, I would look around here and say, okay, well, talked about gathering the mass with the parents and potentially the students, which I'd like more and more as I think about it. And we want to look at these other quadrants. Okay, well, do we have the right structure to drive results? Uh, do we have the right strategy? And are we bringing energy to it? What I do in my work in corporate America is if there's a misalignment in the unifying quadrant, like the team's just not really in high cohesion, I do not do team building and rah unification. Like you can do that. You're just going to see some eye rolling and maybe some short-term results. Instead, I look at strategy. What's the strategy? The structure stabilizing to support that strategy. And we do it with high pace, high energy, including the process for decision making. And what you'll start to see is people start to show up differently because they're solving the problems together differently in a consistent, high paced way. And that naturally improves the culture. It's a very high leverage way to solve cultural issues, which are unifying by looking at these other quadrants. Okay, I appreciate your questions a lot. And again, leverage isn't applying more effort. It's the right effort, apply the right part of the system. I've tried to give you 4 pictures to explain 4 first principles. And you were asked to reflect on where you think the biggest bottleneck is in your work right now and like recall what your instinctive way was to deal with it. And now with this emerging systems view in mind, and you're starting to see the potential higher leverage points, how might you go forth and resolve this challenge? That's really the key. See the system, know what to do, and then drive results quickly. I'm going to take you in 2 weeks from today through this program it's a management certification program. It's 8 weeks, 8 modules. We're going to genuinely transform how you lead by teaching these principles and assigning actual application at your job. So you're going to take a principle and then go and work it. And then you're going to come back the next week and share it with your peer group. And it's a very powerful, very transformative way to start to become a high leverage leader because you see things differently, you know where the high leverage is, and you start to act on it with confidence and conviction. It's a great program to take with a colleague from work because you build up a critical mass of awareness. And a special offer, if you're interested in this program, you can enter the code OP20 and save 20%. I really appreciate you taking the time and engaging with me. And I hope that you found some real take-home value with it. And if you want to go further, that you join me in the 8-week program. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.